She was forced to serve at her sister's wedding until a millionaire stranger said, "You're mine now." Lena Carter never imagined she'd be carrying trays at her own sister's wedding, but life had a way of turning your world upside down when you least expected it. 6 months ago, the Carter family had been comfortable, respected, secure in their place among the city's upper middle class. Her father's investment firm had been thriving, her mother had been planning charity galas, and her younger sister Tessa had been the darling of their social circle with her engagement to Marcus Wellington, son of one of the city's wealthiest families. Then, everything collapsed. Her father's business partner embezzled millions and disappeared, leaving Maxwell Carter holding the bag for debts and legal liabilities that destroyed everything they'd built. The house was foreclosed, the cars repossessed, the country club membership revoked. Friends who'd smiled at cocktail parties suddenly stopped returning calls, and Tessa's wealthy future in-laws, the Wellingtons, made it clear that while the wedding would proceed as planned, they expected the Carters to be appropriately grateful and appropriately invisible, which was how Lena found herself standing in the service hallway of the Grand Monarch Hotel, 28 years old, with a degree in literature she couldn't use and dreams she'd set aside, wearing a borrowed server's uniform that was slightly too tight across the shoulders. Her mother had begged her with tears in her eyes. "You know how Tessa gets when she's stressed. The Wellingtons are paying for everything, but they want a smaller wedding party. They suggested family members could help with service. Please, Lena, don't make a scene. Just help out. For your sister's sake." For your sister's sake, the words that had defined Lena's entire life. The sister who was younger, prettier, more charming. The sister who'd always gotten first choice of everything while Lena was expected to be understanding. The sister who was about to marry into wealth and security while Lena balanced trays and tried not to cry. Before we dive into this emotional story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you're new here. The stories we share aren't just entertainment, they're reminders about dignity, worth, and how the people who truly see us can change everything. Now let's see what happens when Lena's humiliation becomes the moment her entire life changes. The Grand Monarch's ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in cream silk. Centerpieces of white roses and peonies filled the air with delicate fragrance. A string quartet played softly in the corner, while guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos mingled with champagne glasses, their laughter bright and careless. This was supposed to be Lena's world too, once upon a time. Now she stood against the wall near the kitchen doors with the other servers, holding a tray of champagne flutes and trying to make herself invisible. The head server, a stern woman named Patricia, had given clear instructions. "You're to circulate during cocktail hour, keep glasses full, clear used dishes promptly, and under no circumstances are you to engage guests in conversation beyond basic service pleasantries. Is that understood?" Lena had nodded, swallowing her humiliation along with her pride. At least she'd been assigned to cocktail hour rather than the dinner service where she'd have to watch from the sidelines as her sister sat at the head table like a princess. Small mercies. She picked up her tray and moved into the crowd, weaving between clusters of guests who didn't see her face, just the champagne she carried. It was remarkable, really, how invisible you became when you were serving. These were people she'd known growing up, parents of childhood friends, business associates of her father, women who'd sat on charity boards with her mother, and not one of them recognized her or, if they did, acknowledged it. "Is that the Carter girl?" She heard someone whisper as she passed a group of middle-aged women in expensive jewelry. "The older one? I heard she's working as a waitress now. How embarrassing for the family." "Well, after what happened with the father's business, what choice does she have?" another replied. "At least Tessa landed on her feet. That Wellington boy is quite a catch." Lena kept her face neutral, her movements professional, even as shame burned in her chest. She'd been reduced to gossip, to a cautionary tale wealthy people told each other about maintaining proper investments and choosing business partners carefully. The ceremony itself was beautiful, held in the hotel's garden pavilion, with sunset as a backdrop. Lena watched from the service entrance, hidden behind a column, as Tessa walked down the aisle in a dress that cost more than Lena currently made in 6 months. Her sister looked radiant, glowing with happiness and security, escorted by their father who'd aged 10 years in the past 6 months. Their mother sobbed in the front row, tears of relief as much as joy. At least one daughter had been saved. After the ceremony, guests moved back into the ballroom for dinner and dancing. The room had been transformed, tables now arranged with place settings that probably cost more per person than Lena's rent. The wedding party entered to applause and took their places at the head table decorated with cascading flowers and ambient lighting that made everyone look like they belonged in a fairy tale. Lena was assigned to one of the side stations, responsible for keeping water glasses filled and clearing bread plates between courses. She moved through the room mechanically, trying not to think about how this should have been her world too. How she should have been sitting at one of these tables in a beautiful dress, laughing and celebrating, instead of serving people who looked through her like she was furniture. "Lena?" The voice made her freeze. She turned to see Diana Morrison, her college roommate, sitting at table 12 with her husband. Diana's eyes were wide with shock and pity. "Oh my God, is that really you? I heard about your father's business, but I didn't realize. Are you actually working here?" "Diana, hi," Lena said, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack her face. "Yes, just helping out with the family wedding. You know how it is." But Diana's expression said she didn't know how it was at all. Diana, who'd married well, whose father's company had remained stable, who lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs and posted pictures of her perfect life on social media. "That's so brave of you," Diana said, the pity in her voice worse than outright scorn would have been. "Excuse me, I need to check on your table's wine service," Lena said, fleeing before Diana could ask more questions or, worse, offer help out of charitable pity. She made it to the service hallway before the tears threatened. She stood there, back against the wall, taking deep breaths and willing herself not to cry. Not here, not now. She could break down later, when she was alone in the studio apartment she shared with 2 roommates, when nobody could see how thoroughly she'd been humiliated. "Are you the Carter daughter?" Patricia, the head server, appeared with a frown. "You're needed for champagne service during toasts. And fix your face. Guests can't see you looking upset." "Yes, ma'am," Lena said, straightening her shoulders and pushing down every emotion that threatened to surface. She could do this. She could survive this one night. Tomorrow she'd go back to her 2 jobs, the coffee shop in the morning and the bookstore in the evening, and life would be the quiet struggle it had become. But tonight, she just had to make it through. The toasts began after dinner. Lena circulated with champagne, refilling glasses as needed, trying not to listen to the speeches about love and partnership and bright futures. Marcus's best man made jokes about how Marcus had found the perfect woman. Tessa's maid of honor, her wealthy friend Victoria, talked about growing up together and how she'd always known Tessa would marry well. Lena's hands were full with an empty tray when she saw him. He was sitting at one of the back tables, though back was relative in a room where even the cheap seats cost a fortune. He wasn't like the other guests. His tuxedo was impeccably tailored but understated. His posture suggested confidence without arrogance, and he was watching her with an intensity that made her suddenly self-conscious. Their eyes met across the room, and Lena felt something shift in her chest. He wasn't looking at her with pity like Diana had. He wasn't looking through her like the other guests did. He was just looking at her, seeing her. And in that moment of being truly seen, Lena forgot to watch where she was walking. Her foot caught on the edge of a chair that had been pushed back from table 8. The tray wobbled, and Lena tried to catch her balance, but momentum and physics had other plans. The tray tipped, champagne glasses sliding off and crashing to the marble floor, with a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the elegant ballroom. The music stopped. Conversations halted. Every head in the room turned to look at the clumsy server who just shattered expensive crystal all over the floor. "Oh my God, Lena, seriously?" Tessa's voice carried from the head table, sharp with irritation. "Could you be more embarrassing?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not kind laughter, but the cruel amusement of people who enjoyed seeing someone brought even lower. Lena's face burned as she dropped to her knees, frantically trying to pick up the glass shards with shaking hands. Her vision blurred with tears she was determined not to shed. "Careful, you'll cut yourself," Patricia hissed, appearing with a dustpan and brush. "Go to the kitchen, now, before you cause more disruption." But Lena couldn't move. She was frozen there on her knees, surrounded by broken glass and spilled champagne, while 300 people stared at her failure and humiliation. She heard more laughter, heard someone whisper, "The poor thing," in a tone that suggested anything but sympathy, heard her mother's mortified gasp from somewhere in the crowd. This was it. This was rock bottom. This was the moment when whatever dignity Lena had been clinging to finally shattered, like the glasses at her knees. Then a deep voice cut through the noise, commanding and calm. "Stop!" The ballroom fell silent. Lena looked up through her tears to see the man from table 16 standing, his eyes fixed on her with that same intense focus. He crossed the room with purposeful strides, his presence somehow managing to quiet 300 people without him raising his voice. He stopped in front of Lena and extended his hand. "Let me help you up." "I'm fine," Lena whispered, mortified that this stranger was witnessing her lowest moment. "I just need to clean this up." "The staff will clean it up," he said firmly. "You need to stop kneeling on broken glass." When she hesitated, he added more gently, "Please, let me help you." Lena took his hand, and he pulled her to her feet with easy strength. She was tall, but he was taller, and standing this close she could see his eyes were deep brown, warm and steady. He didn't let go of her hand, and when Patricia moved forward to shepherd Lena away, he held up his other hand. "Excuse me," he said to Patricia, still not releasing Lena's hand, "but I don't think she should be working in this capacity. This woman is family, isn't she? The bride's sister." The room erupted in whispers. Tessa looked furious at the head table. Marcus appeared confused. Mrs. Wellington, Marcus's mother, had an expression that suggested she was reconsidering all her life choices that had led to this moment. "Sir, I appreciate your concern," Patricia began, "but we have a job to complete. And you don't belong here," the man said. And for a moment Lena thought he was talking to Patricia, but then she realized his eyes were fixed on her, his voice soft but firm. "Not like this. Come with me." "Sir, who are you?" Marcus had stood from the head table, his face red with either embarrassment or anger. "You can't just interrupt." "Damien Hale," the man said, finally turning to address the room. "I'm here as a business acquaintance of your father, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut my visit short." He looked back at Lena. "Would you do me the honor of joining me for dinner elsewhere? This party seems to have lost its appeal." Lena stared at him, barely processing what was happening. Damien Hale. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. He was the founder and CEO of Hale Industries, a tech company that had revolutionized online security and made him a billionaire before he turned 35. He'd been featured in business magazines her father used to read, always described as brilliant, reclusive, impossible to get a meeting with, and he was standing in her sister's wedding, holding her hand, offering to take her away from this nightmare. "I can't," Lena whispered. "This is my sister's wedding. I can't just leave." "You can," Damien said simply. "You're not required to endure humiliation for anyone, family or otherwise. You're mine now." The words sent a shockwave through the ballroom. Lena felt her heart skip, saw Tessa's mouth fall open, heard her mother gasp audibly. "I'm what?" she managed to ask. "Mine," Damien repeated, though his tone made it clear he wasn't claiming ownership so much as offering protection. As in, "I'm claiming you as my guest, my responsibility, my priority for the evening. No one here gets to treat you like help anymore. Now, would you like to stay at this party, or would you like to go somewhere you'll be treated with the respect you deserve?" It was the easiest decision Lena had ever made. "I'd like to leave, please." Damien smiled, and it transformed his whole face from intimidating to warm. "Then let's go." He kept hold of her hand and started walking toward the exit, Lena following in a daze. "Wait," Tessa's voice rang out. "Lena, you can't just walk out of my wedding." "Mother, do something." But their mother was staring at Damien Hale with wide eyes, clearly recognizing the name and doing rapid calculations about what his interest in Lena might mean for the family's prospects. "Perhaps we should let them go, dear. I'm sure Lena will explain later." "But the Wellington are humiliated," Tessa protested. Everyone will talk about this. They'll talk either way, Damien said, pausing at the ballroom entrance to address the crowd once more. They'll either talk about how your sister was reduced to serving at your wedding after your family's hardship, or they'll talk about how she left with me. I know which story I'd prefer circulating. He looked at Marcus and his parents directly. Perhaps in the future, you might consider treating family members with dignity regardless of their current financial circumstances. Just a thought. 30. Then he led Lena out of the ballroom, through the hotel lobby where staff stared, and into the night where a sleek black car was already waiting, the driver holding the door open like he'd been expecting this exact scenario. Lena slid into the car, her server's uniform feeling ridiculous and tight, her hands still shaking with shock and adrenaline and disbelief at what had just happened. Damien climbed in beside her, the door closed, and suddenly they were moving, leaving the Grand Monarch Hotel and the disaster of Tessa's wedding behind. "I'm sorry," Lena said, the words tumbling out. "I don't know what just happened. I don't know why you did that. I don't even know you. You're Damien Hale, and I'm nobody, and I just ruined my sister's wedding and my mother is going to kill me and—" "Breathe," Damien interrupted gently. "Just breathe for a moment. We'll get to explanations, but first, breathe." Lena tried to follow his instruction, drawing in shaky breaths until her heart rate started to slow. When she felt marginally more in control, she asked, "Why did you do that? Why would you embarrass yourself and your business connections by making a scene at that wedding for someone you don't even know?" Damien was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the city passing by. "Can I tell you a story?" "I think you've earned the right to tell me anything you want," Lena said with a weak laugh. "When I was 14, my parents divorced," Damien began. "Messy, public, ugly divorce where money and pride mattered more than their kid. My mother remarried quickly, to a wealthy man who saw me as an inconvenience and a reminder of her first failure. I was packed off to boarding school, where I spent holidays because neither parent wanted to disrupt their new lives by having me around." He turned to look at Lena. "During one Christmas break, there was a party at my mother's new husband's estate. Big fancy thing with business associates and social climbing and all the emptiness that comes with people who value money over humanity. My mother told me I could attend if I stayed quiet and out of the way, made it clear I was there on sufferance, that I should be grateful I was allowed in the room at all." "That's terrible," Lena whispered. "It was," Damien agreed, "and I spent that whole party watching my mother fawn over her new stepchildren while treating me like an embarrassment. Then, near the end of the night, I accidentally knocked over a tray of hors d'oeuvres. The whole room went silent. Everyone stared. My mother looked mortified. Her husband was furious, and I just wanted to disappear." He met Lena's eyes directly. Then a woman, one of the guests, stood up and said, "It's just food. These things happen." She helped me clean up. She told me I had nothing to be ashamed of. She treated me like I mattered when everyone else treated me like I was invisible. I never forgot that kindness." "Oh," Lena said, understanding flooding through her. "So when you saw me, I saw that scared 14-year-old boy," Damien finished, "and I saw someone who deserved better than what they were getting. So I did what that woman did for me. I reminded you that you matter, that you deserve dignity, that your worth isn't determined by your current circumstances or your family's financial situation." Tears streamed down Lena's face now, the good kind of tears that came from being seen and valued when you thought you were invisible and worthless. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me." "Always," Damien said softly. "Now, let's get you out of that uncomfortable uniform and into an evening where you're treated like the guest of honor you should have been. How does that sound?" "Like a dream," Lena admitted. "But I don't have clothes. I don't have anything except this horrible uniform." "We'll figure it out," Damien assured her. "I have resources. More importantly, I have excellent taste and a credit card. We'll find you something appropriate. Then we'll have dinner somewhere quiet where you can tell me about yourself beyond tonight's disaster." "Why would you want to know about me?" Lena asked. "I'm a college graduate working 2 minimum wage jobs to afford a room in an apartment with 2 roommates. I read books I can't afford to buy and dream about a life I can't access anymore. I'm nobody, Damien." "You're not nobody," Damien said firmly. You're someone who survived hardship with apparent grace based on the fact that you were working your sister's wedding to help your family, despite how they treated you. You're someone who gets knocked down and gets back up. You're someone with dignity and strength, who just needed someone to remind you of your worth. That's not nobody, Lena. That's extraordinary. The car pulled up to a high-end shopping district that was closed to the public at this hour. But when Damien stepped out and made a phone call, lights started coming on inside one of the boutiques. A woman appeared at the door, all smiles and apologies for not being ready sooner. "Mr. Hale," she greeted him warmly. "Thank you for your business. How can we help you this evening?" "My friend needs an evening dress," Damien said, gesturing to Lena, who was still sitting in the car feeling overwhelmed. "Something elegant but comfortable. We have dinner reservations in an hour." The boutique owner took one look at Lena in her server's uniform and, to her credit, didn't ask questions or make judgments. "Of course. Come in, dear. Let's find you something perfect." 5. An hour later, Lena barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress was midnight blue silk that flowed like water, elegant without being ostentatious. The boutique owner had provided shoes, a small clutch, and even helped Lena fix her hair and makeup. She looked like herself again, or rather, like the version of herself she'd been before everything fell apart. Confident, put together, worthy of respect. "You look beautiful," Damien said when she emerged, and the way he said it, with quiet sincerity rather than flattery, made Lena believe him. Dinner was at an intimate restaurant on the top floor of a building overlooking the city. They had a private table by the window, the view spectacular, the food exquisite. But what Lena would remember most was the conversation. Damien asked about her life, her dreams, her education. He listened like her answers mattered. He shared his own story, about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness of success, about the difficulty of finding genuine connections when people only saw his money and influence. "Why aren't you married?" Lena found herself asking. "Surely you could have anyone you wanted." "I could have anyone who wanted my bank account and my connections," Damien said with a slight smile. "But finding someone who wants me, who sees beyond the wealth and the business profile, that's proved considerably more difficult. I've been engaged twice, both times to women who loved the idea of being Mrs. Damien Hale more than they loved me. Both times I realized it before the wedding and ended things. Now I'm 36, extraordinarily successful and extraordinarily alone." "I understand that," Lena said. "Not the successful part, obviously, but the alone part. I lost all my friends when my father's business collapsed. People I thought cared about me stopped returning calls. I realized they liked being friends with Maxwell Carter's daughter, who had access to country clubs and vacation homes. They didn't actually like me. Their loss," Damien said simply. "And now you know who your real friends are. Sometimes loss is a gift in disguise. It shows you the truth." They talked until the restaurant was preparing to close, until Lena realized it was nearly midnight and she'd been with this man for hours, and it felt like minutes. When they finally left, Damien's driver took them to Lena's apartment building, which looked particularly shabby compared to everything else she'd experienced that evening. "Thank you," Lena said, sitting in the car and not quite ready for the night to end. "For everything, for saving me from that disaster, for the dress and the dinner and the conversation, for making me feel like I matter again." "You do matter," Damien said. "And Lena, I'd like to see you again, not out of pity or charity, but because I spent this evening with you and realized I'd rather talk to you than almost anyone else I know. Would that be okay?" Lena's heart raced. "You want to see me again? Damien, you're a billionaire CEO. I work at a coffee shop and a bookstore. We live in completely different worlds. We live in the same city, on the same planet, with the same 24 hours in a day," Damien countered. "Different circumstances, yes, but not different worlds. I'd like to get to know you better, if you'll let me. No pressure, no expectations, just two people spending time together." "Yes," Lena heard herself say. "Yes, I'd like that." Damien smiled, and Lena realized she was already looking forward to seeing that smile again. He walked her to her building entrance, waited until she was safely inside, then returned to his car. Lena climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment in the beautiful dress, feeling like Cinderella after the ball but with the prince's phone number in her clutch. Her roommates were already asleep, so Lena changed quietly and climbed into her own bed. She lay there staring at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened. 12 hours ago, she'd been devastated about serving at her sister's wedding. Now she'd been claimed by one of the most powerful men in the city, treated to a magical evening, and given hope that maybe, just maybe, her life wasn't over. Maybe this was just the beginning of something new. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, the dress hanging carefully in her tiny closet, like evidence that the night had been real and not just a beautiful dream. The next morning, Lena woke to 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. Most were from her mother, ranging from frantic, "Where are you? Are you okay?" to angry, "How could you embarrass your sister like that?" to calculating, "Is it true you left with Damien Hale, the Damien Hale?" There were also messages from Tessa, all variations of outrage about how Lena had ruined her special day, and one message from an unknown number that made her heart skip when she read it. "Good morning. I hope you slept well. Would you like to have coffee with me today? No pressure if you're not ready. Damien." Lena sat on her bed in the tiny room she rented, staring at the message and still half convinced last night had been a dream. But the midnight blue dress hanging in her closet was real. The designer shoes were real, and Damien Hale's phone number in her contacts was very, very real. She texted back before she could overthink it. "Coffee sounds perfect. When and where?" His response came within seconds. "I'll pick you up at 11. Wear something comfortable. We're going somewhere casual." Lena spent the next 2 hours in a state of controlled panic, trying on every outfit she owned and hating all of them. Her roommate Jess, a nurse who worked night shifts, emerged from her room looking amused. "Is this about the billionaire?" Jess asked, leaning against the doorframe with a knowing smile. "Because you've tried on that same outfit 3 times now." "How do you know about that?" Lena asked, mortified. Jess held up her phone, showing a photo that had apparently gone viral overnight. It was from Tessa's wedding, capturing the moment Damien had helped Lena to her feet, his hand holding hers, the broken glass scattered around them. The caption read, "Billionaire CEO Damien Hale walks out of high society wedding with mysterious server." "Mysterious server," Lena groaned. "That's my identity now. Not Lena Carter, but mysterious server." "To be fair, you do look mysterious," Jess said, zooming in on the photo, "and he looks completely smitten." "Lena, this is like a romance novel come to life. The gorgeous billionaire rescuing the wronged woman from her evil family. Please tell me you're going to see him again. He's picking me up for coffee in." Lena checked the time and yelped. 45 minutes. "Jess, what do I wear to coffee with a billionaire?" "Something that makes you feel confident," Jess said practically. "Not something you think he wants to see. Just be yourself. He asked you out because he likes you, not because of what you're wearing." Lena finally settled on dark jeans, a soft grey sweater, and ankle boots. Simple, comfortable, her. She'd just finished applying minimal makeup when her phone buzzed with a text from Damien. "I'm outside. No rush. Take your time." She grabbed her jacket and purse, gave herself one last look in the mirror, and headed downstairs. Damien was leaning against his car, and Lena's breath caught at how different he looked in casual clothes. Dark jeans, a simple black t-shirt, leather jacket. He looked younger, more approachable, though no less attractive. "You look beautiful," he said when she reached him, opening the car door for her. "You look different," Lena said, then immediately wanted to take it back. "I mean, in a good way, more relaxed." "That's the idea," Damien said with a smile. "Today isn't about impressing anyone or maintaining appearances. It's just 2 people getting to know each other." They drove to a small coffee shop in a neighborhood Lena didn't recognize, the kind of place where locals gathered rather than tourists. It was cozy and unpretentious, with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. They ordered at the counter, Damien insisting on paying despite Lena's protests, then settled at a corner table. "This is my favorite coffee shop in the city," Damien said. "I come here when I need to escape the office and just be normal for a while. The owner, Maria, makes the best lattes in the state and doesn't care who I am beyond being a regular customer." It's perfect, Lena said honestly. Much better than some fancy place where I'd be worried about using the wrong fork. There are no wrong forks, Damien said. Just different preferences. Lena, I want you to be comfortable around me. I'm not looking for someone who's impressed by money or intimidated by my business success. I'm looking for someone real. Then you picked the right person, Lena said with a slight laugh. I'm aggressively real. No designer clothes except the dress you bought me last night. No fancy connections. No impressive career. Just me working 2 jobs and trying to rebuild a life that fell apart. Tell me about it, Damien said. Not the jobs, though we can talk about those if you want, but the rebuilding part. What happened with your family's business? Lena had been avoiding this topic, not wanting to seem like she was looking for sympathy or financial help. But Damien's expression was genuinely interested, not pitying, so she told him, about her father's partner embezzling and disappearing, about the lawsuits and the debts, about watching everything her family had built crumble in a matter of months. The worst part wasn't losing the house or the money, Lena said. It was watching my father age 10 years in 10 months. Seeing him broken and defeated and blaming himself for trusting the wrong person, and watching my mother become bitter, throwing all her hopes onto Tessa's wealthy marriage while treating me like I was the disappointment. You're not a disappointment, Damien said firmly. You're surviving an impossible situation with grace, working 2 jobs, helping your family even when they don't appreciate it, maintaining your dignity despite everything. That's not disappointing, Lena. That's remarkable. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been treated like you don't measure up to someone else's expectations, share your story in the comments below, because your worth isn't determined by other people's inability to see it. They talked for hours, long after their coffee cups were empty. Damien shared more about his childhood, about the loneliness of boarding school, and the drive to succeed that came from wanting to prove he didn't need his parents' approval. Lena told him about her degree in literature, about the dream she'd had of teaching or working in publishing before financial reality forced her into retail and food service. What's stopping you now? Damien asked. From pursuing those dreams? Everything, Lena said with a helpless laugh. I need to work full-time to afford rent and food. I can't afford to take unpaid internships or entry-level positions in publishing that pay poverty wages. I can't go back to school for a teaching credential because I'm still paying off my undergraduate loans. The dream requires resources I don't have. Damien was quiet for a moment, and Lena worried she'd said too much, made it seem like she was fishing for help. But then he said, what if I told you I'm on the board of a literacy non-profit that works with underprivileged kids? We're always looking for tutors and program coordinators. The pay isn't amazing, but it's better than minimum wage, and the hours are reasonable. Would that interest you? Lena stared at him. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity, Damien corrected. A chance to do work you actually care about instead of just surviving. If you're interested, I can make introductions. But Lena, this isn't charity or me trying to buy your affection. This is me knowing about a position that needs filling and knowing someone who'd be perfect for it. The choice is entirely yours. Yes, Lena said without hesitation. Yes, I'm interested. When can I apply? Damien smiled. I'll send you the information tonight. They're doing interviews next week. They left the coffee shop and walked through the neighborhood, talking easily about books and movies and childhood memories. Damien told her about learning to code in boarding school because it was something he could do alone in his room. Lena told him about her grandmother, who'd raised her to love reading, who died when Lena was 15 and left a hole nothing had filled. She sounds wonderful, Damien said softly. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you, Lena said. She always said judge people by their actions, not their bank accounts. And your actions last night were pretty incredible. So were yours, Damien countered. You could have stayed at that wedding, endured the humiliation, kept your head down. Instead, you took a chance on a stranger who offered you an escape. That takes courage. Or desperation, Lena said with a laugh. I prefer to think of it as courage. They ended up at a small park, where children played on swings and dogs chased tennis balls. They sat on a bench, shoulders touching, watching the normal life happening around them. Lena felt more relaxed than she had in months, maybe years. There was something about Damien that made her feel safe enough to be herself, without pretense or performance. "Can I ask you something personal?" Lena said. "Anything." "Why did you say 'you're mine now' at the wedding? Those specific words? Because that phrase is either incredibly romantic or incredibly possessive, depending on context." Damien was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "When I was at my mother's husband's party, the one I told you about, I felt like I belonged to no one, like I was nobody's priority or concern. When that woman helped me, she made me feel like I mattered to someone, even if it was just for that moment. She made me feel chosen." He turned to look at Lena directly. "When I saw you on that floor, surrounded by broken glass and laughter, I wanted you to feel chosen too. I wanted you to know that someone saw you and decided you were worth defending. So I said, 'You're mine,' not as possession, but as protection. As in, you're under my care now. You're someone I'm choosing to stand up for. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Lena whispered, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "And for the record, it worked. I felt chosen for the first time in a very long time." Damien reached over and took her hand, linking their fingers together. They sat like that for a while, holding hands on a park bench, watching the world go by. Eventually, Damien's phone buzzed with a call he had to take, something urgent about a business deal. He apologized, handled it quickly, then turned back to Lena with regret in his eyes. "I have to go into the office for a few hours. There's a situation with a client that requires my immediate attention. But Lena, I'd really like to see you again. Soon. Are you free for dinner tomorrow?" "I work until 8 at the bookstore," Lena said. "But I'm free after that." "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 8:30. Wear something comfortable again. I'm thinking we skip the fancy restaurants and do something more fun." "Like what?" "Let me surprise you," Damien said with a smile that made Lena's heart skip. "I'm discovering I like surprising you." He drove Lena back to her apartment, walked her to the building entrance, and kissed her cheek gently. "Thank you for today, for the coffee, and the conversation, and the company. You make me remember why success matters. It's not about accumulating wealth. It's about having the resources to help people you care about pursue their dreams." After he left, Lena climbed the stairs to her apartment feeling like she was floating. Jess was waiting with an expectant expression. "Well?" "He's amazing," Lena admitted. "Kind, thoughtful, genuinely interested in me. Jess, I think I'm in trouble. I'm starting to develop real feelings for a man who's completely out of my league." "Or," Jess countered, "you're finally meeting someone who recognizes your worth." "Stop thinking about leagues, Lena. Start thinking about compatibility and connection. Those matter way more than bank accounts. So, is the way..." Over the next 2 weeks, Lena and Damien saw each other almost daily. Dinners at small restaurants, walks through the city, a cooking class where Damien proved to be surprisingly bad at chopping vegetables, a visit to an art gallery where Lena discussed symbolism in paintings, and Damien listened like she was the most interesting person alive. True to his word, Damien had connected Lena with the literacy nonprofit. She'd interviewed, impressed the director with her passion and knowledge, and been offered a position as a reading coordinator. It paid enough that she could quit both her other jobs, had reasonable hours, and included health insurance. Lena had cried when she got the offer, overwhelmed by the possibility of doing work she actually cared about. "You earned this," Damien had insisted when she thanked him. "I made an introduction. You did the rest. Don't diminish your accomplishment by attributing it to me." But Lena knew the truth. Without Damien's intervention, without his belief in her worth, she'd still be serving coffee and shelving books with no path towards something better. He'd opened a door she didn't even know existed. Her family's reaction to her relationship with Damien had been predictably complex. Her mother called daily, suddenly interested in Lena's life after months of disappointed distance. She wanted details about Damien, about his intentions, about whether Lena was being smart about protecting her interests. It was transparently manipulative, treating Lena's relationship like a business opportunity rather than a genuine connection. Tessa had been furious at first, convinced Lena had somehow orchestrated the scene at her wedding to steal her spotlight. But when photos of Lena and Damien together started appearing in society pages, when speculation about their relationship became a topic of conversation among the wealthy circles Tessa was trying to impress, her anger had shifted to jealousy. "How did you manage to snag Damien Hale?" Tessa had demanded during a tense phone call. "You're nobody. You have nothing. What could he possibly see in you?" The words had stung, but Lena had found strength she didn't know she had. "He sees me, Tessa. Just me. Not my connections or my family's former wealth or what I can do for his image. He sees the person I am and values that. Maybe that's what you should have looked for instead of marrying for money and status." She'd hung up before Tessa could respond, feeling both proud and sad. Proud for standing up for herself, sad that her own sister couldn't be happy for her happiness. Her father had been different. He'd called her one evening, his voice quiet and defeated. "Lena, I owe you an apology. I let your mother push you into serving at Tessa's wedding. I didn't stand up for you when I should have. I'm sorry." "Dad, it's okay," Lena had said, tears streaming down her face. "It's not okay," her father interrupted. "I lost my business, and I lost myself in that failure. I let you down. I let your mother treat you like you were less important than Tessa's social climbing, and I'm ashamed of myself. You deserved better. You've always deserved better." That conversation had healed something in Lena she hadn't realized was broken. Her father's acknowledgement, his genuine remorse, it mattered more than she could express. 3 weeks after the wedding, Damien invited Lena to his home. Not his office or a restaurant, but his actual house. She'd been nervous about it, worried it would feel like crossing some invisible line from dating to something more serious. But Damien had been characteristically thoughtful about the invitation. "I want you to see where I live," he'd said. "Not because I'm trying to impress you with square footage or expensive furniture, but because my home is important to me and I'd like to share it with you. No pressure, no expectations. Just dinner at my place instead of a restaurant. Is that okay?" It was more than okay. It was exactly what Lena needed to hear. His house was in an exclusive neighborhood, gated and private, but surprisingly understated for a billionaire's home. Not a massive mansion, but a beautiful 2-story contemporary design, with clean lines and lots of windows. The interior was elegant but warm, decorated with actual personality rather than looking like a showroom. "I designed it myself," Damien explained as he gave her a tour. "Worked with an architect to create exactly what I wanted. Most people think billionaires live in enormous estates with 20 bedrooms and gold toilets. But I wanted a home, not a monument. Somewhere comfortable and authentic." The kitchen was clearly where he spent time, well used and stocked with quality ingredients. He cooked for her, nothing fancy but competent and delicious. They ate at his dining room table, talking and laughing, and Lena felt more comfortable than she had in any fancy restaurant. After dinner, they sat on his back patio overlooking a small garden, nursing glasses of wine and watching the sun set. Lena felt Damien's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. "I need to tell you something," Damien said, his voice serious enough to make Lena's heart race nervously. "Okay," she said carefully. "I'm falling in love with you," Damien said simply. "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few weeks. But Lena, I've dated plenty of women over the years, and none of them made me feel what you make me feel. You're genuine and kind and strong in ways that have nothing to do with money or connections. You make me want to be better. You make me remember why I built this life in the first place." Lena felt tears slide down her cheeks. "Damien, You don't have to say it back," he interrupted gently. "I'm not saying it to pressure you or expect reciprocation. I'm saying it because it's true, and because I want you to know where I stand. Take all the time you need to figure out your feelings. There's no rush. I'm falling in love with you too," Lena heard herself say. "I've been trying not to because it terrifies me. What if this doesn't last? What if you realize I'm not actually as great as you think I am? What if my family's drama and financial problems become too much? What if—" Damien kissed her, effectively silencing all her fears and doubts. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "What if this is real? What if we're actually perfect for each other? What if all the obstacles and differences and complications don't matter as much as the fact that we make each other happy? Can we focus on those possibilities instead? Yes, Lena whispered. Yes, we can try. They kissed again, and this time it was slow and deep and full of promise. Lena felt something settle in her chest, something that felt suspiciously like hope and belonging and home. Over the next month, their relationship deepened. Lena started her job at the literacy non-profit and discovered she loved it. Working with kids who struggled to read, seeing them light up when they finally understood a concept, it filled a place in her soul she hadn't known was empty. She was good at it too, patient and creative in ways that made a difference. Damien supported her work without overshadowing it. He attended her program's fundraising events, donated generously, but always made it clear that Lena's role was earned through her own merit, not his influence. He celebrated her successes and listened when she vented about challenges. They navigated the complications of their different worlds with honesty and humor. Damien introduced Lena to his world gradually, bringing her to business dinners and charity galas, where she learned to navigate conversations with wealthy people without feeling intimidated. Lena introduced Damien to her world, the small apartment with roommates, the neighborhood restaurants where she'd eaten cheap meals, the library where she'd spent hours reading when she couldn't afford books. "This is my favorite part of knowing you," Damien said one evening as they walked through Lena's old neighborhood. "You remind me that wealth is just a tool, not a personality, that the best things in life don't cost money, that genuine connections matter more than impressive addresses." 4 months after the wedding, Damien took Lena back to the Grand Monarch Hotel. She was nervous, memories of that humiliating night still fresh, but Damien held her hand as they walked into the ballroom where Tessa's wedding had been held. Except it didn't look like a ballroom anymore. It had been transformed into something intimate and beautiful. Candles everywhere, soft music playing, a table set for 2 in the center of the room. "What is this?" Lena asked, overwhelmed. "This is me taking back a memory," Damien said. "The last time you were in this room, you were humiliated and degraded. I wanted to replace that memory with something better, with dinner and dancing and celebration of who you actually are instead of how people mistreated you." They had dinner in that ballroom, just the 2 of them with a small staff serving them discreetly. After they ate, Damien pulled Lena to her feet and led her to the center of the room where an invisible speaker was playing a slow song. "Dance with me," he said, "not as a server or someone's disappointment, but as my partner, my equal, the woman I love." They danced together in the ballroom, where Lena's humiliation had turned into her transformation, where she'd been on her knees in broken glass until Damien had helped her up and said, "You're mine now." Where her life had changed in an instant because someone had chosen to see her worth. "I love you," Lena said as they swayed together. "I love you for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself, for making me feel chosen and valued and worthy of good things. I love you for teaching me what actually matters," Damien replied, "for showing me that success without connection is empty, for being genuine in a world full of people performing, for choosing me back when you could have been scared off by the money and the attention and the complications." As they danced in the ballroom, Lena thought about the journey that had brought her here, the pain of her family's financial collapse, the humiliation of serving at her sister's wedding, the moment when a stranger had looked at her and decided she was worth defending, and the slow, beautiful building of something real with a man who saw her completely. She'd been forced to serve at her sister's wedding, treated like she didn't matter, reduced to invisible help. Then, a millionaire stranger had said, "You're mine now," and changed everything. Not because he'd rescued her with his money, though his resources had certainly helped, but because he'd seen her worth when everyone else overlooked it. Because he'd reminded her that she deserved dignity and respect regardless of her circumstances. Because he'd chosen her, and in being chosen, Lena had remembered how to choose herself. 1 year after the wedding that changed everything, Lena stood in front of her bathroom mirror getting ready for another significant event. But this time, she wasn't wearing a borrowed server's uniform. She was wearing an elegant dress that she'd chosen herself, paid for with money she'd earned at her job, preparing to attend a gala where she'd be introduced not as invisible help, but as Damien Hale's partner. The past year had been a journey of growth and healing. Lena had thrived at the literacy non-profit, developing programs that helped hundreds of children improve their reading skills. She'd been promoted to program director, earning recognition for her innovative teaching methods. She'd moved out of her shared apartment into a small one-bedroom place of her own, modest but comfortable and entirely hers. Most importantly, she'd learned to see herself the way Damien saw her, not as someone defined by her family's failure or her sister's success, but as a person with inherent worth and value. Therapy had helped with that. Sessions she'd started 6 months ago to process the trauma of her family's financial collapse and the years of being treated as less than. "You look beautiful," Damien said, appearing in the doorway. He'd moved in 3 months ago, not because Lena needed financial support, but because they'd both decided they wanted to wake up together every morning. His penthouse sat empty now, listed for sale, because home wasn't about square footage or expensive views. Home was wherever they were together. "You always say that," Lena said with a smile, finishing her lipstick. "Because it's always true." He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Though I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about tonight." "You? Nervous?" Lena turned in his arms to face him. "Damien Hale, billionaire CEO, nervous about a charity gala." "Not about the gala," he said, "about what I'm planning to do at the gala." Before Lena could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed with a text from his driver, indicating they needed to leave. The gala was being held at the Grand Monarch Hotel again, a full-circle moment that Lena had initially been hesitant about. But Damien had assured her this night would be different. This night, she'd walk in through the front entrance as an honored guest, not slip in through the service hallway as invisible help. The ballroom had been transformed for the literacy non-profit's annual fundraiser. Instead of wedding decorations, there were displays showcasing student success stories. Lena's program was featured prominently, with photos of the children she worked with and data showing improved reading scores. She felt a swell of pride seeing her work recognized publicly. The guest list was a who's who of the city's wealthy and influential, but this time, they saw Lena. They approached her with respect, asked about her work, donated to her programs. She was introduced as Lena Carter, the brilliant program director, not that Carter girl who used to serve at weddings. If you've ever felt invisible and then finally been seen, if you've ever had someone believe in you when you didn't believe in yourself, share that story in the comments, because being seen, truly seen, can change everything. Lena's family was also in attendance. Her father had slowly been rebuilding his reputation and career, working as a consultant for a firm that valued his experience. He approached Lena during cocktail hour with genuine pride in his eyes. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," he said, hugging her tight. "Look at what you've built. This program, this work you're doing. It matters. You matter." Her mother was more complicated. She'd shown up wearing too much jewelry and trying too hard to impress Damien's business associates. But there was a moment, late in the evening, when she pulled Lena aside and said, "I was wrong about you. I pushed you to serve at Tessa's wedding because I thought you were the daughter who needed to make herself useful. But you were always the daughter who was going to make a difference. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." It wasn't a perfect apology, and it didn't erase years of preferential treatment toward Tessa. But it was a start, and Lena chose to accept it as such. Tessa and Marcus were notably absent. Lena had heard through family gossip that their marriage was struggling. Apparently, marrying for money and status didn't create a strong foundation when genuine compatibility was missing. Lena felt a twinge of sadness for her sister, but also a sense of relief that she'd chosen differently. She'd chosen love and partnership over security and appearances. Midway through the evening, Damien asked Lena to step outside to the same garden terrace where wedding ceremonies were held. The space was empty now, lit softly by string lights and moonlight. "I wanted a moment alone with you," Damien said, taking both of Lena's hands, "before things get too chaotic in there." "Is everything okay?" Lena asked, noting the nervousness in his expression. "Everything is more than okay," Damien said. "Lena, 1 year ago, I walked into a wedding I had no interest in attending. I was only there as a business courtesy, planning to stay an hour and leave. Then I saw you. I saw a woman carrying a tray of champagne who looked too elegant, too graceful, too hurt to belong in that role. And something inside me said, pay attention to her. He squeezed her hands gently. Then you fell, and glasses shattered, and everyone laughed. And I saw your face, saw how thoroughly you'd been broken down by people who should have protected you. I knew I had to do something. So I walked over and said those words that have defined us. You're mine now. Best words anyone ever said to me, Lena whispered, tears already forming. They were the truth then, and they're still the truth now, Damien said. You're mine, Lena, not as possession but as partnership. You're my best friend, my confidant, my home. You make me want to be better. You remind me what success actually means. You've taught me that the only wealth that truly matters is love and connection and making a difference in people's lives. He released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Lena's breath caught as he dropped to one knee on the terrace, the city lights twinkling behind him like stars. Lena Carter, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life being yours the way you're mine? Will you build a future with me based not on money or status, but on genuine love and partnership? Lena was crying fully now, happy tears streaming down her face. Yes, she managed through the tears. Yes, Damien, I'll marry you. I love you so much. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into a kiss that made her forget they were standing on a terrace at a hotel gala. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing and holding each other like they'd never let go. I have a surprise for you, Damien said. Well, several surprises. First, your father and I have been working together on a project. We're starting a foundation specifically to help families facing financial hardship due to business fraud or embezzlement. We want to provide legal support, financial counseling, and emergency assistance so families don't lose everything the way yours did. Lena stared at him in shock. You're doing what? Your father knows this world better than anyone, Damien explained. He knows what families need, what resources would have helped him. We're using his experience and my resources to build something that might prevent other families from suffering the way yours did. We're calling it the Carter Hale Foundation for Financial Recovery. Damien, that's incredible, Lena whispered, having my father's name on it, giving him a chance to turn his worst experience into something that helps others. He deserves redemption, Damien said. Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. That's what you taught me. You rebuilt from nothing, and look at what you've created. Your father deserves the same opportunity. What are the other surprises? Lena asked, still processing the foundation news. Damien smiled. I've been working with Victoria, the boutique owner who gave you your first job after everything happened. We're opening a business together, a chain of shops that specifically hire people facing economic hardship, people rebuilding from bankruptcy or homelessness or domestic violence situations. We'll provide training, fair wages, and a pathway to management positions. It's called Second Chances Boutique. And let me guess, Lena said with a knowing smile, you want me involved somehow? Only if you want to be, Damien said. I was thinking you could oversee the training programs. Use your teaching experience to develop curricula. But Lena, this is entirely optional. You already have a career you love. I'm just offering opportunities if you're interested. Lena thought about it. Her literacy work was fulfilling, but the idea of helping people rebuild their lives the way she'd rebuilt hers, that spoke to something deep in her soul. Can I do both? Keep my program director role but consult on the training program development? You can do anything you want, Damien said. You're the most capable person I know. If anyone can handle multiple projects, it's you. They returned to the gala to announce their engagement. The room erupted in applause and congratulations. Lena's father hugged them both, tears in his eyes. Her mother cried and fussed over the ring. Lena's co-workers from the non-profit screamed with excitement. Even some of the business associates who'd witnessed her humiliation at Tessa's wedding a year ago came over to offer genuine congratulations, several apologizing for not standing up for her that night. We should have said something, one woman admitted. Watching you serve at your own sister's wedding, it was cruel. I'm ashamed we all just sat there. You're saying something now, Lena said graciously. That matters. The rest of the evening was a celebration. Dancing and champagne and joy that felt earned rather than purchased. Lena stood with Damien in the center of the ballroom, the same space where she'd been on her knees in broken glass a year ago, and marveled at how completely her life had transformed. Not because a billionaire had rescued her, though Damien's intervention had certainly catalyzed change, but because she'd done the hard work of rebuilding. She'd accepted help when it was offered. She'd pursued opportunities that scared her. She'd learned to see her own worth instead of letting others define her value. 6 months later, Lena and Damien married in a small ceremony at a botanical garden. Not the Grand Monarch Hotel with its grand ballrooms, but an intimate outdoor space with close friends and family. Lena wore a simple white dress that made her feel beautiful without trying to impress anyone. Ella, her niece and flower girl, scattered rose petals down the aisle while Damien waited with tears already in his eyes. Her father walked her down the aisle, whispering, "I'm so proud of you, Lena, not because you're marrying a successful man, but because you became a successful woman in your own right. You took the worst thing that happened to our family and turned it into something beautiful." The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Vows they'd written themselves about partnership and respect and choosing each other every day. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Damien kissed Lena like she was the most precious thing in the world, because to him, she was. At the reception, Lena's father gave a toast that brought everyone to tears. A year and a half ago, our family lost everything: our home, our savings, our social standing. We were broken and desperate and unsure how we'd survive. My daughter Lena was forced to serve at her sister's wedding because we couldn't afford to maintain appearances. It was the lowest point of our lives. He looked at Lena with love shining in his eyes. But from that low point, something beautiful grew. Lena didn't let hardship define her. She worked 2 jobs, rebuilt from nothing, and eventually found work she's passionate about. She didn't marry for money or security. She married for love and partnership. And in doing so, she taught our entire family what actually matters. Not wealth or status, but dignity and love and genuine connection. Turning to Damien, he continued, "Thank you for seeing my daughter's worth when the rest of us had forgotten it. Thank you for standing up for her when she'd been beaten down too many times. Thank you for being the kind of man who values character over circumstances. You didn't save Lena, but you reminded her she was worth saving. That's the greatest gift you could have given her." The celebration continued late into the night. Lena danced with her father, with Damien, with co-workers and friends who'd supported her journey. She laughed until her cheeks hurt and cried happy tears until her mascara ran. And through it all, she felt grateful. Not just for Damien or the opportunities she'd been given, but for the journey itself. Because the truth was, being forced to serve at Tessa's wedding had been humiliating, but it had also been the catalyst for change. If she hadn't been in that ballroom, hadn't dropped those glasses, hadn't been on her knees in broken glass while people laughed, Damien never would have approached her, never would have said, "You're mine now," never would have reminded her that she deserved better than what she'd been accepting. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives contain the seeds of our greatest transformations. Sometimes we have to be broken down completely before we can rebuild into something stronger. Sometimes the people who seem to rescue us are actually just holding up a mirror, reminding us of the strength we already possessed. 3 years after the wedding, Lena stood in the community center that housed her literacy program, watching children read books they couldn't have accessed a year ago. The Carter Hale Foundation for Financial Recovery had helped over 500 families avoid bankruptcy. Second, Chance's Boutique had opened 12 locations and employed over 300 people rebuilding their lives. Damien came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Penny, for your thoughts?" "Just thinking about how far we've come," Lena said, leaning back against him. 3 years ago, I was convinced my life was over. Now look at what we've built." "Look at what you've built," Damien corrected. "I just provided resources and support. You're the one who took those resources and created programs that actually change lives." "We're a team," Lena said firmly. "You and me, building something meaningful together. That's what matters." They stood there watching the children read, thinking about the journey that had brought them to this moment. A journey that started with humiliation and broken glass, but ended with love and partnership and meaningful work that helped others. Lena thought about the server's uniform she'd worn that night, how it had felt like the ultimate symbol of failure. Now that uniform was displayed in her office, framed alongside her program director certificate and photos of students she'd helped, a reminder of where she'd been and how far she'd come. Because the truth was, she'd been forced to serve at her sister's wedding, but from that degradation had come dignity. From that humiliation had come healing. From that moment of being invisible had come the experience of being truly seen. A millionaire stranger had said, "You're mine now," and Lena had chosen to believe it, not as possession but as protection, not as charity but as partnership, not as rescue but as recognition of worth she'd temporarily forgotten she possessed. And in being chosen, Lena had learned to choose herself, to value her own contributions, to see her own strength, to believe she deserved good things not because of who she married but because of who she was. That was the real lesson, not that wealthy men sweep in and save struggling women, but that sometimes we all need someone to remind us of our worth when we've forgotten it, someone to see us when we feel invisible, someone to stand up for us when we've been beaten down too many times to stand up for ourselves. Damien had been that person for Lena, but over time, Lena had become that person for herself, and together, they'd built something beautiful. Not a fairy tale where money solved all problems, but a real partnership where two people chose each other every day and used their combined resources to help others. 5 years after that fateful wedding, Lena hosted a reunion at their home for women who'd worked their way through the Second Chances boutique program. Women who'd rebuilt from domestic violence, bankruptcy, homelessness, addiction. Women who'd been broken down and written off and told they'd never amount to anything. "I want to tell you a story," Lena said to the gathered group. 5 years ago, I was forced to serve at my own sister's wedding after my family lost everything. I was in a server's uniform, carrying champagne, being treated like I was invisible. Then I fell, glasses shattered, and everyone laughed at my humiliation. I was on my knees in broken glass, convinced my life was over. She paused, making eye contact with each woman. Then a stranger approached me. He helped me up. He looked at me like I mattered when everyone else looked through me. He said, "You're mine now," and he led me out of that ballroom, away from the people who degraded me, toward a future where I was valued and respected. "That sounds like a rescue," one woman said. "Like he saved you." "That's what I thought at first," Lena admitted. "But over time, I realized something. Damien didn't save me. He reminded me I was worth saving. He held up a mirror and showed me the strength I already possessed but had forgotten. He opened doors, yes, but I'm the one who walked through them. I'm the one who rebuilt my career and my confidence and my life." She gestured to the women gathered. "That's what I want for each of you. Not for someone to save you, but for someone to remind you of your own strength. Not for someone to fix your life, but for someone to support you while you fix it yourself. Because you're all capable of incredible things. You just need opportunity and support, and someone who believes in you until you remember how to believe in yourself." The women applauded, many crying. After the event ended and everyone had left, Damien found Lena on their terrace, looking out at the city lights. "That was a beautiful speech," he said, joining her. "It was the truth," Lena replied. "You didn't save me, Damien. You just reminded me I was worth saving. There's a difference." "I love you," Damien said simply, "for your strength and your compassion and your ability to take pain and transform it into purpose. You're the most remarkable person I've ever known." "I love you too," Lena said, "for seeing me when I was invisible, for standing up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself, for being patient while I learned to see my own worth. You gave me time and space to heal, and that gift is immeasurable." They stood together on the terrace, looking out at the city where their story had begun. 5 years ago, in a ballroom not far from where they stood, Lena had been humiliated and degraded and reduced to nothing. 5 years ago, a stranger had chosen to see her and defend her and remind her she mattered. Now they stood together as partners, as equals, as two people who'd chosen each other consciously and completely. They'd built a life based not on wealth or status, but on genuine love and shared purpose. They'd used their resources to help others rebuild the way they'd rebuilt. And they'd proven that the only success that truly matters is the kind that lifts others up alongside you. Lena Carter had been forced to serve at her sister's wedding, treated like she didn't matter, reduced to invisible help. Then a millionaire stranger said, "You're mine now," and everything changed. Not because money solved her problems or wealth erased her pain, but because someone saw her worth when everyone else overlooked it. Because someone reminded her she deserved dignity when she'd forgotten. Because someone chose her when she felt unchosen by the world. And in being chosen, Lena learned to choose herself. She learned that her worth wasn't determined by her bank account or her family's circumstances or her sister's marriage. She learned that she was valuable exactly as she was, with her dreams and her determination and her capacity for rebuilding. That was the real transformation, not from poor to rich or invisible to seen, but from self-doubt to self-worth, from victim to survivor to thriver, from someone who accepted degradation to someone who demanded dignity. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been treated as less than you are, or had someone remind you of your worth when you'd forgotten it, share this video and drop a comment below. Because these stories matter, these reminders that we all deserve dignity and respect, regardless of our circumstances, they change lives. Thank you for joining Lena and Damien on their journey from humiliation to healing, from broken glass to building something beautiful. May we all be both the person who reminds others of their worth and the person brave enough to believe it when we're reminded. May we all choose partnership over possession, dignity over degradation, love over status. And may we remember that sometimes the worst moments of our lives contain the seeds of our greatest transformations. We just have to be brave enough to accept help, strong enough to do the work, and wise enough to recognize that being chosen by someone else is wonderful, but choosing ourselves is essential.